Hey, it's Laura. Welcome back to my channel where I want to help you know God and make Him known. In this video, we are going through Matthew chapter 23, and we see a different side of Jesus that hasn't really been as in your face as it is in this chapter. Okay, chapter 23. It starts out like this. Then Jesus spoke to the crowds and to his disciples. Okay, so here, crowds, lots and lots of people, and his disciples are with him. The scribes and the Pharisees are seating in the chair of Moses. Therefore, do whatever they tell you and observe it, but don't do what they do, because they don't practice what they teach. They tie up heavy loads that are hard to carry out and put them on people's shoulders, but they themselves are not willing to lift a finger to move them. They do everything to be observed by others. So here is Jesus talking to others about the scribes and Pharisees. All right, how would you feel if you were the scribes and Pharisees? I would be ticked. I would be so mad. I would be completely humiliated. But what does that show us about Jesus? Is that he is not governed by the fear of hurting someone's feelings. He cares more about their rescue, about their eternal standing and being rescued from hell than he does about shame and honor. All right, the highest thing to Jesus is them being able to humble themselves so that they can turn to him. Pretty crazy, right? All right, then it goes on to say, he talks about it. This is like the whole chapter. Then he goes on in verse 8. It says, "But as for you, don't be called rabbi because you have one teacher, and you are all brothers. Don't call anyone on earth your father because you have one Father who is in heaven. And don't be called masters either because you have one master, the Messiah. The greatest among you will be your servant. And then whoever exalts himself will be humbled, and whoever humbles himself will be exalted." So their desire was for superiority. The scribes and Sadducees, they wanted to have this one up, one down relationship of like, I'm better than you, you're under me, I'm over you, I have authority over you. That was kind of their heart's desire. And that distracted them from having a real reverence for God, realizing, no, wait, we are all under God. And he's the one that we look up to. He is our authority. So what Jesus did is he prohibited this use of honor titles for spiritual leaders so that he would encourage this sense of humility instead of the superiority of top down, and distract them from honoring and revering God above all things. And so it's just saying, like, God is the highest, like Jesus is the highest. Like, we got to be real careful about putting people on pedestals because Jesus is the one that should be on the pedestal. Nobody else can sit on a pedestal and not fall. We see some really important principles that are timeless and universal, is that we need to care more about someone's eternal standing than their feelings of maybe them feeling embarrassed. All right, so when we're sharing the gospel, it can be hard to talk about sin. I love how Kirk Cameron and Ray Comfort they make a point that we have to talk about sin. And the way the law is set up is it makes it real easy. The 10 Commandments, so we could just say okay, so there's the 10 Commandments. This is the standard by which God will judge us. Let's see, are you innocent or guilty? Have you ever lied? You can get in the same boat, right? So yes, you've lied. Okay, me too. All right, have you ever dishonored someone, disobeyed your parents? Yes. Have you ever stolen anything, regardless of value? Paperclip from work. All right. Yes. So that makes us guilty before God. So it is important to bring up this really hard thing because it might hurt their feelings that you're saying that they have sinned and they're not perfect. But it's worth it because without the knowledge of sin, the cross is foolishness. It doesn't make sense. Why would Jesus die for us if there was no need for sinners to be forgiven? Of God to put on skin, live the perfect life, die, and be raised himself from the dead so that we could be forgiven if we've never done anything wrong. So, really, like, by God's grace, we can ask, like, God, I'm so sometimes scared of saying hard things to people because I don't want to hurt their feelings. But here we see Jesus say some really hard things because he cares more about them being in heaven than he does about hurting their feelings, because they need to hear these things. It goes, I mean, he goes on. He's verse 23, woe to you, scribes and Pharisees, you hypocrites. And he gives them an example. Woe to you, scribes and Pharisees, hypocrites. You clean the outside. He gives them another example. Woe to you. I mean, again and again, like these examples so that they can see their need for a savior. And then he gets real, like, snakes, brood of vipers. How can you escape being condemned to hell? He just pointed out their sin and is saying, you're guilty before the living God, in hopes that they will recognize it and turn to their savior. All right, so a second principle is watch yourself that you don't do things to be observed by others. That's what the Pharisees did, is they just did stuff so that people would think they're so awesome and so great. And we just got to be careful. Like, why do you do what you do? Why are you doing the things you're doing? And go to God with it. When you have a bad attitude about something, that doesn't mean, and you're doing something good, say you're like spending time with God and his word, don't say, oh, I'm just doing it because I'm checking it off a list. I'm not going to have quiet time anymore. No, that's a good action. So don't quit the good action. Just, there's also the bad attitude. So you ask God to fix the bad attitude. Don't cut off the good action, but cut off the bad attitude by saying, God, please forgive me. Help me not have this horrible attitude. All right. And then a third thing is to humble yourself. All right. It is my job is to humble myself, not other people. It's my job to search my heart and ask God to show me the wicked ways in my heart, not to be like, oh, yep, that person needs to hear that, right? Let's let God do the humbling in other people's hearts. We can just share truth, share reality, point out, yes, here's the 10 Commandments. We all fall short, but we are in charge of humbling ourselves. And then we can pray and ask God, God, open up my heart, my eyes to my motives so I can see my true motives, and we can actually turn to God with it. So that's chapter 23. We see this God who is bold as a lion, right? Innocent as a dove because of his love for people. All right, chapter 23. Thanks for joining me. Subscribe down below. Hit the notification bell so you will be notified of Matthew 24. All right. Thanks for joining me. Bye-bye.